What's up guys, Scalamunger here, and today I'm bringing something new to the channel, and something I hope will be the first of many videos in a similar vein. Over the years, I've played a variety of video games, and almost none have come close to the impact they've had on my life than the Mass Effect series, particularly the original trilogy, but I'm also somebody who didn't really mind Andromeda either. With the release of Mass Effect Legendary Edition, and me playing the games again with a fresh new overhaul, it's caused me to watch a lot of Mass Effect content recently, especially over the past few weeks, and that has kind of inspired me to start a series that I've had in planning for a while, and which I'm calling Scal List Things at the moment. But there may be a better name that appears over time. So today we're going to run down a list of every Mass Effect squadmate from all four games, and order them from my least favourite to my favourite. I will stress that this is a highly biased list. It's only my opinions. If your favourite character is low down on my list, please don't take offence. This is just my list, and if you love that character, then that is great for you. If this is something you enjoy, please feel free to hit that like button and subscribe. And without any further ado, here is Mass Effect Squadmates Ranked. Number 30. Jenkins. Ha! Jenkins. Number 29. Kaidan Alenko. The first, but definitely not last decision that is going to upset a lot of Mass Effect fans out there in regards to the placement of my characters is having Kaidan down this low. But to me, Kaidan is the epitome of the boring, generic, male default squadmate that appears in all four games that we're discussing today. Of the four of them, Kaidan to me just has nothing about him. Whilst he does have the advantage of being in all three main series games, to me that just emphasises how much of a nothing character I find him. He has the least development of anybody. He's legitimately a soldier who has loved and lost. He's had trauma with his biotics, but he's grown and he's basically dealt with all that before you meet him. He doesn't really go under much of a character change. He's a big fan of council politics. He's a strong believer in the system. Really, that's all you say about Kaidan. I hear his romance is good if you get him in Game 3, but to me, I would never go there. And to me, he's the Vermeer sacrifice 9 times out of 10, because love or hate Ashley, she offers so much more to the story in Mass Effect 3 than he does. Sorry, Kaidan fans. Number 28. Jacob Taylor. Given he was 29, I don't think there's going to be that much surprise around who some of my lower character choices are. This is Mass Effect 2's version of the generic male default squad member. Yay. Jacob, like Kaidan, he's just boring. He's very one-dimensional. I could be wrong, but I think he's the only character that Shepard can start a romance with, but will always have that romance ended by Mass Effect 3. In fact, I believe he cheats on you almost no matter what you do. Which, you know, you can't cheat on Shepard. I don't expect that many people have actually gone and romanced him. He's decent in combat, but you get better options later on. His loyalty quest is quite actually an interesting one. Obviously with his father and the island that turns into cannibals and people go crazy. That's quite interesting, and that for me puts him above Kaidan on this list. And you know, he has a great surname. Number 27. Nyreen Kandros, or Kandros. There's probably a few people out there that quite like this character. She's the first Turian female that we meet in the whole series. But for me, she plays such a secondary role to Arya in the DLC that she's in. Obviously, she's from the Omega DLC. I found myself sticking to supporting Arya way more than I did supporting her. Didn't really agree with Nyreen. And that is probably because I traditionally play a Renegade Shepard. So he's got that affiliation with Arya, and Arya has most of the Renegade pathways. There's nothing inherently wrong with Nyreen. And perhaps I have been a bit harsh putting her this far down. But to me, she really wasn't that memorable. And there is a better female Turian that will take a higher spot on this list later on. So sorry, Nyreen. This is where we land. Number 26. Liam Costa, Mass Effect Andromeda. Some people may actually be surprised that it's taken until number 26 to get to Liam, or to get to an Andromeda character in general. But I think one thing that most agree on is Liam is probably the worst character in Andromeda. And yeah, he is the default generic male character. Um, woo. There's only one of those to go now, at least, and it won't be that long before we get to him, which probably doesn't surprise you. Liam does actually have character, though. He has a lot of jokes. He has some good banter with the squadmates. He also has movie night, which is a bit of an homage to the Citadel in Andromeda terms. Movie night's a really good side quest and a good payoff for going through all of that. From what I hear, his romance is actually quite sweet. It's not one that I've ever played through because I think there are better options as female rider. I will say though, I don't have anywhere near the disdain for Liam that I do for Caden or Jacob. Liam is solid. In fact, a lot shows that there aren't really a lot of terrible characters on this list. For Liam to be down this low, and he's not a bad character at all. So yeah. Number 25. Nakmor Drak from Mass Effect Andromeda. This is many people's favourite character from Andromeda. He finds himself down on my list because he's just not mine. As a whole, I have to say, I am not a huge Krogan fan. And I know there are a lot of people out there that are Krogan fans and won't like my list because of that. Drak does have a lot of funny dialogue in Andromeda, just like a lot of the characters do in Andromeda. If you match him up with PB, some incredible dialogue choices you can have there, which actually does make you want to bring him along on more missions. I just find myself leaving him behind because even though stories are funny, there's something about him that just doesn't resonate with me. I guess he's like a Krogan Zaid in that respect, but funnier. He's not a bad character by any sense of the word. He's entertaining, he's fun, he's useful in combat. He just isn't that high on my personal favourite lists. Number 24. Samara. I'm actually surprised that Samara is this far down on my list. She's a very compelling character, certainly different to anyone else in the series. Her Just a Car Code is a fascinating way for her to live her life, and a great hurdle she has to work around, particularly in Mass Effect 3. Obviously, to resolve her mission by saving her daughters, her code then forbids them, as they are Arayashi, from living outside of the monastery, but the monastery is destroyed, so her code compels her to kill her daughters. And if not for a Paragon interrupt, she will shoot herself in order to avoid the conflict of having to kill her other two daughters, both of which are very good people, just with an unfortunate condition. Of course, that is very much opposite to her other daughter, Morinth, who, let's say, chooses to use her skills in rather more evil ways, rather than remain very sheltered and guarded in the monastery. Her romance as well is very unique. She can only be romanced by a very, very paragon shepherd. And he has to be almost... I think if you make too many renegade decisions, you just flat out can't romance her. And the romance only then does conclude in the Citadel. Only the most die-hard committed Samara and Shepard fans would go that romance route because of the lack of a payoff, really. Getting one kiss scene in Citadel DSC, it's just too much effort to get such a little payoff in a romance. So yeah, I find Samara a very fascinating character. But again, as a player that plays a majority of Shepard's Renegade, she's not a character that I really get on with all that well. But really, really good one though. Number 23. James Vega, Mass Effect 3. I won't say it. Oh, okay, he's the Mass Effect 3 generic male default squadmaster. However, I do give James the edge over the rest of them by quite a bit, because they gave him a really good character, some great development through Mass Effect 3. His relationship obviously starting out quite rocky with Shepard, being mad that he's found himself stuck away from Earth and having to fight a war, not where the war's going on. And obviously that dialogue with Shepard can really help shape what James becomes. He has so many good comedic moments as well, from like fixing the AA towers where he just kicks them, to the Citadel DAC where he kicks a vent, and all the comments he makes from being biotics with a Liara. He's such great banter with his James, one of the most banterous characters. And obviously Shepard can shape his career quite a lot. He's very unique. Again, into the Citadel DSC is the only time you can like quasi romance him, and it's like a one night stand, which he seems to actually quite regret a bit afterwards. Which is quite crazy because he might be the only character that sort of regrets that relationship with Shepard. He's just not interested in that at all. He's a soldier caught up in the wrong place at the wrong time. It pains him to leave Earth behind and play politics, but he learns the importance of what the squad is doing, and provides a great contrast to some of the more Normandy familiar characters. Even if he does have to play that role of like audience surrogate to sort of get things explained to him a little bit. Unfortunately, it's not enough to see him higher on this list in terms of my favourite character, but it's not through lack of him being a good character. And fun fact, James, he was actually below Liam on the first draft of this list. However, when I was going to sleep, I was thinking about the list, and on conclusion, I was watching some Mass Effect content, and I remembered some more of the things about James that I had neglected, such as him following the N7 pathway just as Shepard did, and a particular comment that compared James to Shepard as how Shepard is to Anderson. And for me, that was good enough to bump him up a few places. Maybe not as highly as he deserves, but James, the beers would be on me. Number 22. Thane Krios, Mass Effect 2 and 3. I know. I just know people are going to hate me for having Thane this low. I know he's such a loved character. I know he's the Drell Dreamboat, the female romance of dreams, a tortured soul mourning the death of his wife, and an assassin suffering from an incurable disease, with a son that can be tamed and brought to respectability. Thane is truly a torture character at the start of Mass Effect 2. He's obviously taking on jobs, knowing he's going to die, righting the wrongs of the world. But as broken as he is, you could also argue he's one of the most together characters of Mass Effect 2. Because he has got everything he wants in order other than his son issue. He's accepted his fate, and he's trying to do some good in the world. And that's why he joins a suicide mission free of charge, because it's a righteous cause. He wants to investigate the human colonies. He wants to do good things in the world. If you play and keep him alive through Mass Effect 2 suicide mission, he does appear then in Mass Effect 3. And if you visit him in the hospital, he'll then show up. And rather than dying to disease, he'll go out a heroic death, obviously sacrificing himself to save the Salarian Councillor. His loyalty mission in Mass Effect 2 is actually one of the most annoying loyalty missions to me personally. As someone who constantly gets lost and turn around, not only in video games but in real life, my original attempt many years ago when this first game came out saw me being pretty useless at mini-maps and remembering where I'm going. And me trying to follow his son through those rafters proved incredibly annoying for me. And I'm a bit ashamed to say, took me a few retries first time round. Nowadays, of course, I know how much of an idiot younger me was. And the mission is not a problem. But it can't replace the memories and make me forget how much I disliked it when I was younger. And despite Thane being higher on the list than Jacob and Samara, I feel like he's a character I don't really miss too much if he's not around in Mass Effect 3. Which is actually kind of interesting this time specifically, because I am in the middle of a playthrough of Mass Effect 2 and trying to do some different things than I would usually do. And I actually find myself bringing Thane along a little bit, because he has got some good powers as a squad mate. So maybe, if I did this list in a year's time, maybe he'd be a little bit higher up. But for now, Thane's going to sit at 22. Number 21. Veteran Nyx from Mass Effect Andromeda. Well, a big hello to our most popular female Turian, hailing from Mass Effect Andromeda. And also is the first female Turian to be romanceable. I will admit, this is one romance I have not done. I haven't played Andromeda as much as other games, so it's not one that I have gotten around to doing. And there are a couple of other characters that I prefer to romance as male rider. And you will notice that neither of them have come up in this list yet, so you will see them later on. Vetra is also a character I'm not the most knowledgeable about. I will say I didn't get to know her all that well on my playthroughs. I'm not massively knowledgeable on her backstory and motivations. I will definitely be paying more attention to her the next time I get to do an Andromeda playthrough. However, she's very tough. She's got a great little attitude for a Taurian. In an alternative world, perhaps she would be a good match for Garrus. Providing, of course, that your Shep doesn't end up with Garrus or he's not ending up with Tali. Vetra was entertaining. She had some very interesting dialogue with the other characters. Probably the least humorous character. I would feel bad having her any lower than this when my memory is quite vague on her. What I saw, I liked her, but she's just a victim of there being better characters than her to spend the time with in Mass Effect Andromeda. Number 20. Zaid Masani. Zaid, for a long time, would have probably been much lower on this list. Obviously, unfortunately, with him being a DLC character, you don't quite get the same amount of interactions you do with him compared to the rest of the crewmates, excluding Kasumi, of course. The lack of a real recruitment mission also takes away that time that you would have spent searching for him and maybe even getting to know him. However, his loyalty mission is very interesting. It's definitely one of the more explosive loyalty missions and very on-the-line ones. The idea that you have to literally commit a massive renegade act in order to keep Zaid loyal or have a mass amount of Paragon or Renegades to overrule him. I really like that because it gives you that, if you go to his loyalty mission too early in the game and you're not prepared, he is a very realistic option of somebody that won't be loyal come the end of the game. I say if you don't have those scales decked out already, you could find yourself being unable to get the loyalty of Zaid if you get to that position and you don't want to make that renegade choice of sacrificing an entire factory of workers. Which of course then could end up increasing his odds of dying in the suicide mission. Alternatively, of course, you can make that big renegade choice. Even though I think even playing as a renegade, that's a hard renegade choice to make. His plotline in Mass Effect 3, it's okay. It's pretty negligible, especially compared to Kasumi's. And so if Zaid is missing from the game, if he has died in that suicide mission, you really won't notice it too much, other than the Citadel DLC, of course, because everybody is pretty much great in the Citadel DLC, and he is no exception. The character himself, he's very different to anybody else that you have. I would most compare him to, let's say, in Mass Effect 1, maybe Rex, and then, of course, maybe Drac. If any, he's a human Krogan. He's as human as as Krogan as a human as I would ever expect somebody to be. A no-nonsense, violent killing machine bounty hunter, gets the job done. He'd be a renegade Shepard, if anything, but he just doesn't command the respect that Shepard does, despite his notoriety across the galaxy. He isn't versed in diplomacy. He's very bullheaded. He's pretty much the ideal candidate for a suicide mission. But I really don't think that Zaid is anyone's favourite character, and for me, he is my 20th. Number 19. Javik. Mass Effect 3. I'm sorry, but why is this character DLC? I know it's day one and it's immediately available, but why? Why is he DLC? He's so critical to the game. You cannot play Mass Effect 3 without Javik. You miss out on so much information and dialogue and just revelation without him. Those people, I feel so bad for those people that didn't know that Eden Prime mission would be recruiting a Prothean, because you have to go there first, because you just cheated out of the content in the game if you don't. Imagine not having Javik going to Thessia. Like, you think, oh, I'll save the Eden Prime. I don't know if you can save that late in the game, but just imagine not having him for some of these missions. He should be a priority mission. You should be heading there straight after Mars, for my opinion. Even before you go to the Turians, you should be able to get him there and then take him to the Turians. Or at the very least, he should become a priority after you visit the Turian moon. It's baffling to me how they could describe him as a DLC character. He's so important. That being said, of course, he's only number 19 on my list. And that's because I'm just not a huge fan of his interactions. He's born in fire and war. He's a soldier through and through. He has the most cynical outlook on life because he's seen the catastrophic disaster that the Reapers can cause. He's lived it firsthand. He lacks respect for the other species that are big in these times, because when in his day these species were nothing but worms and cavemen and just squids and all sorts of just primitive creatures, especially the Solarians, which was like, they used to eat flies. Now he does grow. He learns to respect Shepard, especially. Shepard proves himself a lot to Javik very quickly. And even Liara and him have a little moment at the end if pushed the right way eventually. He does spend most of the game being very cruel to Liara, especially if you take him to Thessia. It's not really cruelty, he is just telling the truth, but it comes across very cruel. And you can see how every little revelation he reveals is just breaking Liara's heart. In terms of a romance, again, he's not really romanceable, although, yes, again, in the Citadel DLC, he can have a one-night stand with Shepard, and that waking up scene is quite very funny, and Shepard's just like, never speak of this. And he has this one line that always makes me laugh, is, wow, there is something that your species is good at then. And that's always funny. But as I say, Javik is one of the most important characters in Mass Effect 3, even if he's not my favourite. I would highly recommend a playthrough where or several playthroughs where you take him to each mission, because he's always got something unique to say. Unfortunately, being important does not fully translate into being one of my favourite characters, which is why he sits nicely at 19. Number 18. Not Rex. Oh man, this is where the comments blow up if they haven't already. Oh man. I know, don't hate me. I know Rex is one of the most beloved characters. I know he's heavily involved in all three games. I know he's a stabling influence for the Krogan, balances the leadership, is best buds with Shepard, and I know that scene with Grunt in the Citadel DLC is probably one of the most iconic scenes. But hear me out. My first experience with Mass Effect was Mass Effect 2. I had the PlayStation, so I didn't have the Xbox, and originally the first game was only out for Xbox. So I first got Mass Effect 2 on the recommendation from some friends, and one of those friends' favourite character was Rex. Now at this point I didn't really care about the game, I didn't really know any of the characters, so when I loaded up Mass Effect 3 and I did the interactive comic, I picked some random choices, not really knowing the context behind them, because I didn't know any of the people or the characters or anything. And I chose to kill Rex, because he was nothing to me, just the name of a character, and it annoyed my friend. So why not? Knowing what I know now, it's an extremely rare decision for me to kill Rex, only if I'm looking to do a specific kind of playthrough. But back then, the first experience of me playing the games was Rexless. And obviously I got stuck with Reeve, which is never really good. And as I said before, I'm not the biggest fan of Krogan. Rex is brilliantly written, and the contrast between him and Eve and the ramifications of that whole plot line is some of the best consequent story crafting in the entire series. Like the Genophage plot running through all three games, coming to a head one way or the other, is fantastic. The consequences, obviously, whether you have Reeve or Rex, whether you kept or destroyed Malon's data, whether or not you cure or fake cure the genophage, the impact that has on Mordin, whether he is alive or dead, and whether you then have to deal with Rex again. Oh, it's just a whole string of beautiful gamesmanship that can go in so many different ways depending on so many different outcomes. It's brilliant. It's a fantastic multiple choice payoff, and one of the biggest strengths of this game is the genophage plotline. The fact as well is, if you betray Rex, you have to kill him, and you lose him for the Citadel DLC, and he's a big loss from that Citadel DLC. He is fantastic to have around, and he's worth keeping alive even if you don't like him, just for that sort of thing, because he's just great. And the final battle is a testament to the best these games have to offer, with him, because he's just incredible. And saying that, he just doesn't interest me as much as other characters, and that's why, in fact, there are 17 other characters that interest me more. Number 17, Ashley Williams. Now, when making this list, I perhaps should have realised that I had Ashley directly in front of Rex, which is going to be a controversial decision, considering exactly what happens or can happen on Vermeer. And if the comments didn't hate me before, they're probably going to hate me now for having her one step above. Now, as most people probably agree, Rex was quite low on my list. For a lot of people, Ashley is going to be way too high on my list. She will certainly divide opinions. Some people can see the absolute beauty of the character if you're playing a renegade, a Paragon Shepherd, but with a more of renegade-y, playful outlook on life. Basically, she wants you to treat her nicely, but make lots of renegade decisions everywhere else. Bit self-centered. Given that she's also the most renegade-scaled character in Mass Effect 1, except for Rex. So she's a little bit of a double standard there. She's often described as a space racist, which in that opinion... In that opinion's defense, she makes a lot of questionable comments in the first game. There are some that you think, oh my god, what is she saying? Like, that reaction. However, if you look closely at her behaviour as a whole, you realise she's not exactly racist. She's just extremely cautious of alien species. And she has a lot of baggage related to alien species, especially Taurians. And she wants the best for humanity, but she goes about it in a way that makes her seem very, very anti-alien. Which, the argument is there that she is, but there are aliens that she does get accustomed to. Tali, for example. If you listen to general opinions on Ashley, then it sounds like Cerberus would be a great fit for her. But as you know, she completely disowns Cerberus. She won't go anywhere near them. The fact that you work for them disgusts her. They are a completely pro-human group that doesn't traditionally work with aliens, and Ashley hates them. If she was racist, if she had any prejudice against alien species that went to a level on a hatred, then she would be a part of Cerberus, no question. They would have recruited her the moment that she was part of Shepard's team and lost Shepard. They would not have hesitated, but she is an Alliance soldier through and through. She has a lot of respect for the Alliance. She not only turns down joining and working with Cerberus, even if she's in a relationship with you, she flat out condemns you for it. It is a sore point going into the third game, and she doesn't forgive you easily over it either. It takes time. Ashley's backstory, she's incredibly family orientated. Nothing is more important to her than the Alliance and family, and they go hand in hand. And she often shows her more playful side when she's talking about them. Once you break down her walls in Mass Effect 1, she also has a very entertaining romance scene. You really do see Ashley's love for a playful renegade Shep. They do meld very well together. In Mass Effect 3, her assault scene is truly more heartbreaking than Cadence, As you can probably tell, I'm not a huge fan of Kaden. Her recovery in hospital includes like wanting poetry books and all these sweet romantic things, really opening up her heart, and really showing people that she's not this hard rock that everyone thinks she is. I can actually talk a lot more about Ashley, but instead I would like to direct you to a YouTuber named X Badger Knight X, who has done an almost 4-hour character dissection of Ashley Williams, and it truly shows her in the truest light. I would highly recommend going to check that out after this video. He does also have some further in-depth character analyses on Garrus, Tarly, and Liara, I believe, and they're also all very much worth a watch. I'll drop his link in the description if it does sound of any interest to you. And I have no doubt, would actually have Ashley much further on his list than number 17. Number 16. Jarl from Mass Effect Andromeda, or Jarl Amartahav. Anguaran squadmate, Jarl is a very interesting character. Being a resident of the Andromeda Galaxy, he's definitely different to almost everybody else. Doesn't come on the ship, obviously, he's already there. He helps to provide a huge insight into the new world that his ship has found it in. Jarl initially joins your party under the guidance of helping you in your quest and helping to prove yourself to the Angaran people. But his motives do run a bit deeper than that, which you'll find out should you spend some time getting to know him. He's also, I think he's very, from what I remember, he's quite bored. He wants something different in life. Given that he's a species that we've never met and already around the new galaxy, as you can imagine, his dialogue is very cool to listen to. Having some unique conversations. Obviously, he's from an entirely different galaxy. Things are very different for him than they would ever been for anybody in our galaxy. He has a very good relationship with Liam. They have a couple of very entertaining scenes together. There's one that's sticking in my mind particularly, and you should play the game just to see that. A lot of quests revolve around something to do with Jarl, because obviously the Angarans are such a big part of Mass Effect Andromeda. He's a very involved squad member. He's fine in combat, nothing special. Again, some great dialogue in the vehicle, which is, the name is eluding me. And he's definitely worth having in rotation on the driving sections because, I say, he does offer some quality content. I'm somebody that doesn't really mind the look of the Angaran people either. I probably wouldn't romance Jarl. I think he looks a little bit too alien for a human, but then again, people romance Taurians, and I'm a huge Garrus fan, so what do I know? But yeah, I think having Jarl at number 16 is a pretty fair assessment. He was never going to break into the upper echelons of characters, and perhaps actually finds himself quite a little bit higher than he should, considering the dissections I've given the last two characters. Number 15. Cora Harper. The penultimate member of the Andromeda squad on this list is human female character Cora Harper, heir to your father's throne as Ryder of Pathfinder. She's initially hurt and betrayed by Alex Ryder when he passes that ability and legacy to his son rather than her. Cora has been training for it much longer and is second in command, and by all rights should be the one to inherit the Pathfinder abilities, and she is jumped in the pecking order by Ryder, whether that be the male or female character of your choosing. If you're kind to Cora, she will pretty much easily get past this and be fully supportive of Ryder. She becomes your second in command and helps you tremendously along the way, provides a lot of help and support. Cora's romance is actually really sweet as well. Her character switch from this hard-ass sort of Pathfinder trainee, you then explore her want to plant a garden and plant flowers and being basically a romantic at heart. She definitely holds a special place in my heart. She's a good romance, a really solid romance to follow through. She's obviously really great in combat. Really fun to have around. Again, her interactions with PB are fantastic. They are very, very different characters. They have a lot of banter between them they're on opposite sides of a lot of issues. Of course, she's a great she is a great relationship provider, but she's not the absolute best for me. And obviously, that character you'll see later on. But Cora Harper, 15, halfway through the list over. Number 14. Grunt. Shepherd. And this is our final Krogan on the list. Yes, ahead of Rex, and yes, not that high either. No Krogans touching the top 10. Ouch. But Grunt, make no mistake, Grunt is a fantastic character. I love Grunt to bits. And that just shows the strength of all the characters to come. His introduction in the cargo hold is fantastic. The fact that one of his and Shepard's first interactions could be that Shepard shoots him, and he doesn't get angry at that, he respects it, in fact. Obviously, if you have a high enough Renegade or Paragon, then you can avoid the shooting, and instead he's got the gun held up to him, and that whole thing plays out really well as well. He grows a lot, so he's sort of this teenager almost angsty and just wants to fight and just go for the fight, Shepard. And then he becomes like a real comedic genius going into both the end of Mass Effect 2, into Mass Effect 3, and of course the Citadel DLC. It's a very entertaining journey to live through Grunts. And obviously, what's really great about him is even if he joins Rex's or Reeves' clan to obviously make him loyal in Mass Effect 2. But he's more loyal to Shepard as his battle master than he is to Clan Erdnot. So if you do decide to betray Rex in regards to the Genophage, Grunt will stick by you no matter what. He doesn't really care. I think he would prefer to mate, but he's so loyal to you that it's never even an issue. He never brings it up. Grunt is also retroactively the number one reason to save the Rachni Queen in the first game. Because if you save her, then it obviously helps him survive, but also rescue the Krogan. Because obviously if you don't have the Rachni Queen alive, and you choose not to rescue the Krogan, Grunt will die. He might have a chance to die either way if you don't have the Queen, but he can definitely live if you rescue the Krogan and have the Rachni Queen alive, which is good. It may be that he can also live if you decide not to rescue the Krogan. There's a lot of permutations and stuff there, but keeping the Rachni Queen, good way to keep Grunt alive. Grunt and Shepard's relationship is also it develops from that of a battle master and warrior to just like old friends who just banter and have a laugh and take the piss out of each other. Grunt's first experience of a human or any other person really is Shepard. Like, he has the memories of Okeer, but the first person like physically he's with is Shepard, and that's a bond that is really created between the two of them, and it makes Grunt a really, really great character. There's that scene in the Citadel where you get him out of trouble as well, and that's just amazing. And it baffles me that Grunt is this far down on my list, but there are just so many amazing characters to come. And like, I don't see this as being low, even though there's so many more characters. Grunt is a phenomenal character, and him being 14 is only paramount to the great characters that are still to come. Number 13. Legion. Does this unit have a soul? Yes, Legion. Yes, it does. It's our favourite Geth was a wonderful bait and switch by Bioware, and the creators of Mass Effect. For those who did play Mass Effect 1 first, which as I said I did not, but still, you spent the entire game fighting Geth. The game had programmed you. Geth are the enemy. They destroyed the Quarian home planet. They chased them away from it. Geth work for Sovereign, just Geth are the enemy, right? For Saren, for Sovereign, for Reapers. And then they give you a squad mate in Mass Effect 2 that's a Geth. And not only that, you learn you trust him. He puts a lot of faith in you. You learn to trust him. Legion actually plays a crucial role in defeating the Reapers. The fact that he can bring the Geth on side, he can take them off the Reapers. The Geth and the Quarians can work together in order to form a super fleet, and retake the Quarian home planet and work together to rebuild it. Legion just does a lot for the mission, to the fact that even Tali, who's part of the Quarian race, who are the number one haters of the Geth, having created them, Tali grows to see him as a friend, and does that line that I said at the start where she actually says, yes, he does have a sword. Legion is also my personal favourite squad mate to use in the events. One, I think it makes sense because the heat obviously isn't going to affect him in the same sort of way. Yes, he's got like critical systems and stuff, but it also, for me, it gives him the chance to prove himself to the mission, because you often get him quite late on in the game, and he's only really trusted at that point by Shepard in Mass Effect 2, and Shepard's taking a sort of a big leap of faith on him. So by putting him in events, it's showing a lot of faith that Legion is a good guy and Legion wants to help. And when he does succeed in that and he comes out the other side and nobody dies from it, I think that's a show not only to Shepard, because Shepard has this feeling that you can trust him anyway, but it shows to everybody else that Legion, at least this version of Legion, can be trusted and will do a good job and was there for Shepard and is almost as loyal to Shepard as any non-organic can be, helping to take down the Collectors. I can't ever imagine playing Mass Effect 2 where sending Legion to Cerberus or just never activating him. There are some decisions in Mass Effect 2 that I'll happily make just for the experiment, just for different gameplay. Killing Rex, for example, in Mass Effect 1. Destroying or keeping the Collector base. But what is the point in ever not activating Legion? It just doesn't make any sense. There's also that bonus sort of an Easter egg that you can actually, if you time your missions well, you can unlock Legion and still have time to take him to the Quarian homeworld for Tali's loyalty mission. And you take a Geth to a Quarian legal hearing about Tali bringing Geth aboard the fleet. It all sounds like a horrendous idea, and it is, which is why it plays out really, really well. And then you end up trying to acquit her from a case, an accusation of bringing Geth aboard, when you as Shepard have just done the exact same thing that may endanger the migrant fleet. Obviously, at this point, you trust Legion, so I'm surprised that her and Shepard don't just get spaced right there and then, to be honest. Like, the cheek of it. And Shepard like has to stand up. Even Legion's like, maybe this isn't a good idea, maybe I should wait. And Shepard's like, nope, you're coming with me. And I bet that's something that not everybody has mentioned, because I think there is a way that you can do that and still rescue everybody, but it's so specific, because you can only do that one mission in between, I think, Reaper IFF and saving the crew, or it's something around like that. But there is a way to do it, and it's worth doing at least once if you can. So the only downside to Legion is you don't really get as much time to get to know him, because you do get him right at the end of the game, basically going straight into the suicide mission if you're playing it the way that most people will play it. That is why his dialogue is sped up a lot, so it will immediately get you to his loyalty quest, being like Reaper IFF and all this stuff, and you don't quite get that time. Like, often, if you go back to him after game, the rest of his dialogue will play out, so then you can get to know him. But I just don't know how many people actually did that. What's beneficial for him, however, is he does get a long loyalty mission. Not a loyalty mission. He does get a long mission in Mass Effect 3 that's to do with him. I believe first you rescue him, and then you have the Geth consensus mission, which, don't get me wrong, when you're first doing it, it's kind of fascinating, kind of cool. It does get a little bit tiresome after a while. And that mission is not one that I would look forward to, but it is something different, something very different to the rest of the game, and it does present a lot of exposition, especially regarding the Quarians and the Geth War and the very beginnings of that. That is very interesting as a Mass Effect fan to get to know. And then obviously you've got the resolution of the Geth Quarian storyline. Another bit of fantastic storytelling throughout the trilogy, because the Geth Quarian fight has been a part of it since day one, since the first planet you land on a Mass Effect, you see the Geth, and they have been the enemy. And at this point, if you solve the Geth Quarian relationship, the Geth are no longer an enemy to anyone. They are just another race of beings, of synthetic beings, yes, but another race that, with that knowledge from the Reaper, allows them free thought, free thinking, survivability, and the choice to not be violent. There will be outliers, of course, because every race has its outliers that are still evil and will resent the Quarians, I'm sure. But as a whole, the Geth and the Quarians make peace, and that allows both races to live their lives. The fact Legion, I've talked this much about Legion, and the fact he's not in my top 10 is a travesty. Like, I put him in this list originally much higher, and he just kept dropping and dropping, and I could not believe it. And he dropped so far, I came up with reasons to get him higher again. And this is as high as I could physically get him. But I love this character, and I won't hear a bad word said about him. Number 12. Arya T'Loak. Now this is very, very high for a character that you only really get in a DLC mission. Omega is a lengthy DLC mission, but it is just this one overarching mission that you get her for. However, it is a long mission, and we do already know Arya from Mass Effect 2. We spent little bits of time about her. We helped her with a couple of missions, the Patriarch, and then obviously we gave her some data to protect her. So that relationship is already there. And one day she did say she would come help us, and come for our help when she was wanting to take on Omega, take back Omega. So that relationship is already there, that I think allows that development to be there and can slightly justify where she is on my list. Now, her personality to me is really, really good and fun. I love that sort of a character. I play a renegade shepherd. That helps. She's an absolute badass who gives no fucks. Aya is Omega. She gets her shit sorted out the way she wants to do it. She's a fiery temper. Hell, she even has what I believe the most overpowered bonus power that the game can give you. I think it's Flare. It's just bonkers how powerful that is. You can literally, if you play a New Game Plus, you can have that power on and you can spam it, and it just kills. Like, it doesn't matter the difficulty. You just fire it and it just obliterates things. It's crazy. I think it's called Flare. It's the one. It's like a beam that she throws out at people. It's really, really good. I just love her character. She's a great partner for a renegade shepherd. I don't think they would ever have anything long term. I think both characters would be very headstrong and very give no fucks. I think they would become pretty hated. But you know, I'm sure there are a few mutually beneficial ways for both to enjoy that relationship they could have together as a more casual thing. And the fact that Aya does kiss the renegade shepherd, or at least the shepherd that supports Aya, that is usually a renegade shepherd, I think that shows that she has a big respect and a begrudged attraction to Shepard that she doesn't really want, but is there, and she respects him at the same time, and she's just like, yeah, okay, this guy, this girl, they're really great, they're formidable, they're as powerful as me. She's also really unique for an Asari, because you don't see that many badass Asaris. Like, there are very many capable Asaris and really, really strong Asari. Liara is incredibly strong. as well as many other Asari that we meet through the air. But none of them have that edge that Arya does, and just that grit. She's you want her behind you in a fight. You don't want to be fighting her. She's an Asari warrior more than a biotic. Like she would be her own class. Just an Asari warrior. I love this character. I think she's still a bit underused. I love the fact we got a DLC around her. I would have loved to have her to have joined you. After that, obviously, she would never be that self-sacrificial. But I love her, and I think she truly deserves to be this high on my list. It is my list. If you don't like her that much, that's fair. Number 11. Morinth. Now, you'll have to excuse me here while I rant, because Bioware's treatment of Morinth is truly horrific. The only assumption is that there must have been some facts and figures that there was such a small percentage of people that chose Morinth, that chose to save and recruit her over Samara, and the fact that she had to pretend to be Samara. Maybe they thought there's just no point in giving her any type of mission in Mass Effect 3. No, almost nobody has this character. What's the point in having her be a part of any mission? Let's just make her a Banshee at the end of the game. People will see her name and go, oh, that's what happens in Morith. That's fine. No, that's not fine. If you keep her alive in Mass Effect 2, all you get in Mass Effect 3 is a note to say hi, and then that she's become a Banshee in the final mission. Morinth is the most underutilized and underappreciated character in the entirety of Mass Effect. And here's why. Her backstory is fascinating. It's so much better than Samara's. So much better than Samara's. I'm not saying she would stick with Shepard into Mass Effect 3. Of course not. Her loyalty to Shepard would have ended as soon as Mass Effect 2 ended, and that's fine because we've seen a couple of other people that their loyalty wavered as well. Like, maybe not completely ended, but I mean, for God's sake, Jacob cheats on you. Like, sure, he's still loyal, but not loyal in that way. Anyway, Morinth's lifestyle keeps herself out of the public, but also integrates herself into it. Like, you meet her in this bar, she's trying to pick up people that she finds interesting, knowing that if she takes them back to her place, the Ardat Yashi part of her is going to end up killing the person. Morinth is a morally corrupt person, but she is just trying to live her life the way she wants to. Is it right? No. Does she belong in jail? Absolutely. Should she be in this monastery? Most definitely. But you can't just write her off in such a bad way. I believe that's such a tragic mistake. Like, just awful. Mind puzzle for you. Imagine this. Imagine you save Morinth and she's in Samara's place in Mass Effect 3. The whole mission to the Asari Monastery takes on a completely different tone, even. She could be there to kill her sisters. You could have one part of the mission where you save Samara, and she's there to save her daughters. Or you could have Morinth come in, and for some reason she wants to kill them. Or even you could have her show some compassion and want to save them as well, and convince them, listen, I'm out there living my life as an Ardat Yashi. Let's go terrorize the world together. We can rule the world. Today, Pinky will take over the world. It gets a little bit silly, but you see what I mean? Like, she could have been there. Maybe there was other reasons she was there. Maybe she has some selfish reasons for being there. Maybe she's found a way to gain more power or to gain more abilities. Maybe she wants some sidekicks. There are so many opportunities that she could have been there. You know what? Even so, another one, she could have continued to pretend to be Samara in this time, right? Morinth died, she could have pretended to be Samara. She could turn up to the monastery as Samara. Shepard could walk in, see them all together, and like a brick hit him in the face. Like, he knows that's not Samara, and he can tell them. He can have that bombshell and drop them to tell them. Their daughters would crumble and feel so like sad, and they would turn on Morinth, and that whole mission then could then be hunting down Morinth and killing her. If she was to die in Mass Effect 3, why not have it that, you know, you end up killing her? And if you want to make it even better, right at the end, go through this entire mission making it perfectly obvious the intent is to kill Morinth. Make her irredeemably evil to the fact where you have to kill her, and then give us the choice at the end to turn back on the sisters and keep Morinth alive once again. Why not? Now, if you then want to make the decision that if you do keep her alive, she becomes a Banshee, that's fine, right? But maybe there's a chance that she just lives. Or maybe you betray her and you can kill her off. How much more interesting does that make Morinth? How much more interesting does that make that entire monastery mission? Knowing that it plays out in two... Because if you got Samara, it could just be a plain... Keep the mission the exact same as it is with Samara. But if you have Morinth, why not change that mission up entirely? They've done it before. There are different ways these things play out, depending on the person, the dialogue. How much more interesting a mission would that have made? I think the drama and the excitement and the variability that then would be in that mission is truly one of the biggest missed opportunities by the creators of Mass Effect that they have ever had. Having Shepard game over in Mass Effect 2 with Morinth, if he does sleep with her, is a genius decision. It very much humanises Shepard. It shows that he's not a god. He doesn't have magic powers. He's simply a very strong-willed human that, of course, dies to an Ardak Yashi, because that's what happens. There would never be this strong bond between Shepard and Morinth. Shepard would definitely... Morinth is too evil for even a Paragon Shepard, a Renegade Shepard, to appreciate. There would never be any respect there. Morinth would respect Shepard and would probably want Shepard even more. She would definitely want Shepard. But Shepard is not interested, would not be interested in a long-term thing with that. He would just see the value in Morinth and how much more powerful that is than Samara in some ways. I personally was very hurt when saving Morinth had just no payoff in Mass Effect 3. Again, think of all the ways that would have been so much better. And the game now forces you, basically, to keep Samara alive. Because you get more story out of the game now if Samara is alive. You get nothing if Morinth is alive. It's not like it's a swap for one set of a story or another. It's the same story if you keep Samara alive, it's just no Samara. But if you keep Morinth, it's the same story because she's not there. Like, it makes no sense why they would do that. There's nothing you benefit now from gaining Morinth. You don't get any more dialogue. You don't get anything additional. You just lose content, and that's not how it should be. This different character, should keep different content in the game. It should give you options. It is crazy to me what they did to this character, and just making her nothing. Like, it's truly baffling to me, and I truly believe if that mission was a thing, Morinth would be even higher on my list. Maybe she would be about the same, because maybe I wouldn't be quite as outraged at the loss of Morinth. But this is one of the most things that pisses me off the most about this game, this series as a whole. This is one of the decisions that I just will never understand. There is no excuse at all why Morinth could not have had any involvement in Mass Effect 3. She's my number 11, is it? Shame on you, Bioware. Just shame. Number 10. EDI. Well, here we go. The top 10 characters across the 4 Mass Effect games, according to Scal. We start those with EDI. EDI is a squadmate in Mass Effect 3, and a huge part of the crew in Mass Effect 2. But she actually started off in the remnants of a side mission in Mass Effect 1. I think she is the artificial intelligence on the moon that you have to shut down. And then, like, Cerberus resurrects the technology to create EDI for Mass Effect 2, and then she's the AI on your ship. Progressing into Mass Effect 3, where she inhabits a body from Dr. Eva and becomes an actual fully fledged squadmate. as well as obviously still being Edie in Normandy. So yeah, going into Mass Effect 3, as that's mostly where she is the squad mate. She is an artificial intelligence that inhabits a synthetically made bio body. Um, this actually provides quite a number of entertaining moments in both. Well, in terms of the body in Mass Effect 3 and in Mass Effect 2, there's a lot of very funny interactions with Joker. Edie becoming to sort of toy around with him, and that bond forming, but almost the disdain that Joker has for her is completely overcome when Edie literally saves the Normandy, basically with a slight bit of help from Joker, but she led him all the way and really saved everyone. Um, and it's her relationship with Joker that truly makes Edie a really good character. Um, she antagonizes him before they become incredibly close. During that scene in Mass Effect 2, the shackles are released from Edie, giving her true AI capabilities, allowing her access to knowledge she wasn't able to access before, and allowing her to make her own decisions on the world. Eventually bonding with Shepard and her crewmates to turn against the elusive man when they all do. And I say, all of this leads to Joker respecting her more. When she develops this body and she gets into a sort of quasi-romance with Joker, in that she's like a perfect companion for him because of the brittle bone disease. She is the toughness that he would need in someone to take care of him, as well as like just this comedic, fun relationship they can have. Mass Effect 3 is also very interesting for Edie as a character, because if you play a Shepard that is kind to her and will support her, Edie will become more human as the game goes on, and obviously pursue that relationship with Joker, as well as ask you some interesting questions along the way. And her seeking that advice, again, is a very humorous aspect of Mass Effect 3. The other character that Edie interacts really well with is also in Mass Effect 3, is Specialist Trainer. Trainer is like she takes over from Kelly in respect into Mass Effect 3. She does a little bit more than Kelly, and she's much more involved. But she has a huge crush on Edie's voice, and makes several sexual suggestive comments towards that voice, not realizing at first that Edie is in fact an AI and can process this information. This especially kicks up a gear when going to the Citadel, when it is revealed some of the more raunchy comments exactly that Trainer has said towards Edie. And that interaction plays out very funnily, and Joker being around for that does make it incredibly entertaining. So that is Edie. I would just like to take this moment as an honorary mention to say how much I love Trainer. Trainer's a brilliant character. I fell for her almost instantly. I was a male chef at the time, though, and obviously finding out that you couldn't do anything with her as a male chef was quite disappointing. But for me, she's the only character in Mass Effect 3 that she's worth waiting for to romance as a female Shepard. I feel like you get a decent amount of development with her, not as much as other people, obviously. The Citadel DLC again helps a lot with that relationship with Trainer. The toothbrush scene comes to mind as an incredible scene across all of Mass Effect, just the way she holds it up and bzzz. The romance scenes with her are also given a lot more care and attention than a lot of other scenes with other people are. And her relationship with Shepard is very different, very unique, very genuine. Almost like she's almost a reward for Shepard getting this far, and they just fit well together. So yeah, special mention for Specialist Trainer, and that was Edie, who is much deserving of being in the top 10 at number 10. Number 9. Joker. Now, this is where I bend my rule a little bit it's my video. Joker's not technically a squad mate of Shepard. However, there is that one section where you control him. So for me, that counts. I was in control of him. He was my squad as a player. I am sorry if you don't agree with him being on this list. But it also makes the list a nice round 30, which, helps the OCD demon in my head. And how can you make a Mass Effect list without Joker on it? Whether he's this high or not, that's obviously personal opinion, but how can he not be on a list? I said a lot about him in his entry, obviously, but Joker is pure comic genius. Seth Green is a perfect casting choice for Joker. He adds a lightheartedness. You can't help but laugh at some of his comments. He delivers each line with such sarcasm and such brilliance that he just brings that character to life. Mass Effect 1, it's worth going up to the cockpit every main mission because he's always got something to say. Mass Effect 2 is exactly the same. His dynamic with Edie especially kicks into gear there. Mass Effect 3, he's more of a live character, having conversations with other people, getting more involved. And Joker's obviously a stalwart of the entire series, or the entire trilogy at least. And he's great. Obviously, having him being a Brittle Bones pilot is an interesting aspect to his character. Often looked upon negatively because of his condition. He proves obviously everybody wrong. Becomes the best pilot in the galaxy. Pulls off things throughout the series that there's no other pilot that you could have had done. Some people say that getting Joker back in Mass Effect 2 wasn't necessary. Cerberus could have used any pilot. They only got Joker because he's a familiar face. And whilst I do think obviously that is a good reason for them to have gotten back, I also think they get him back because he's the best pilot. I don't think we've not seen any pilot that could have done what he did. In Mass Effect 1, dropping the Mako. In Mass Effect 2, the suicide mission, the driving through all of that. He's a unique pilot. He is truly a part of the Normandy. He joins Cerberus because they let him fly. The Alliance said, no, without Shepard, you lost the ship, you can't fly. Cerberus said, we want you to fly. We're going to bring back Shepard. We want you to fly. Here's your ship. And there's no one that Shepard would trust more to pilot, to be his helmsman. Joker being on the number is exactly where he deserves to be. He's a pilot not like no other. He's a true hero, saves the entire crew on multiple occasions, and is truly, I believe, deserving of this high of a spot of a squad mate, even if you only do get to technically control him for a very brief section of the game. Number 8. Kasumi Goto. Perhaps a character that is up a little bit high on this list, considering the lack of development that she gets. Obviously, being a DLC character in the same vein as Zaid, she doesn't get that proper recruitment mission, and just has the loyalty mission followed by a mission in Mass Effect 3. However, even on the brief loyalty, I mean, what I will say about those DLC recruitment missions, they do give you an immediate sense of who the character is. And Kasumi playing this sort of game with Shepard and the flirty atmosphere between them, it very much suits Kasumi and her personality. I think she's a very cute character. I think she's she's definitely the most interesting thing about Jacob. Her crush on him is definitely the only thing that makes him relevant in any way. If Kasumi was not a DLC character, if she was a fully fledged romanceable character, I think she would have been incredible. And I feel like that is a romance that I definitely would have played a few times. She definitely, I think, would have rivaled a few of the other characters. Perhaps would have been a bit similar to Tali in terms of a romance, but we'll never know. Her interactions aren't quite as cool in Mass Effect 2 because of that static repetition of just generic lines, but those comments are quite interesting if you do take the time to hear them. It's just obviously not the same because it's not like the conversation flow you have with other squad mates. She does play as a good advisor to Shepard. She comments on his romances, asks him to do things to look after people. Her loyalty mission is obviously very touching. Obviously she had a very close relationship that has ended in him dying, and she's getting his grey box, and obviously you can help her move on from it, or keep that grey box. I feel like I feel like there isn't a wrong decision there. I feel like even if she was romanceable, I still don't think there's a wrong decision. Perhaps if she is romanceable, you convince her to keep that is probably the better idea, because it allows her to keep that, but also move on with you. And maybe if you weren't going to romance her, perhaps it's better to have her move on completely from the old ways. But as I say, I really don't think there's a wrong answer to that question. I generally can't decide if it would be better for her to keep it or to lose it. Obviously, she's in danger every time for as long as she has it, but in the end, I think it's her choice. She's flirting with Shepard, but there's never any hint of a romance there, which I think is a shame. She's decent in combat. She's got some cool abilities. I especially like her Shadow Strike ability. Not the most useful of things, but I think when you're going to a particularly easy fight and mission, I think it can be fun to watch her just pop up behind people, and that's obviously an aspect that she brings not only in combat but to cutscenes as well. The DLC and Mass Effect 3 in general, she'll often appear behind people, and obviously appearing in her own mission that she's attached to, which obviously can lead to her dying / disappearing if she wasn't loyal in Mass Effect 2 but was alive still. But if is alive, she'll obviously pop back on and say goodbye. And yeah, I really like Kasumi. Not as much to say about her as some of the other top 10, but I think she is. I could have had a lot more potential than she did, but I think anyway she was a very compelling character. Number 7. I am the very model of a scientist Solarian. I've studied species Turian, Asari, Batarian. I'm quite good at genetics as a subset of biology because I am an expert, which I know is a tautology. My xenoscience studies range from urban to agrarian. I am the very model of a scientist Solarian. Mordin Solace. I mean, how could anybody not have Mordin at least this high on their tier list? He truly won our hearts and minds with his songs, his fun advice, his manner of speaking, his outlook on life, high speed, quirky nature. His role in improving and then potentially ending the genophage just shows how much a character can grow. Because if you talk to Mordin early on in Mass Effect 2, he's the most completely certain of his decision of anybody ever in a game. Like, he is so certain that the genophage had to be done at the time. He had all the correct data, everything in his head completely certain. And of course, by the end of Mass Effect 3, given, of course, if you made the right decisions along the way, he comes to accept that now that data has changed and the genophage is not the thing that it was before. It shouldn't be a part of the world anymore. And it really shows how even the most vehement dissuader of something can come around to actually argue for the other side. Now, what I will say, as I spoke with Rex, I had Reeve in my first playthrough, so keeping the genophage alive was not a big priority of mine, because you don't get that sense of the Krogan turning around. And I will say that in my first playthrough of the game, or even my first couple of playthroughs, I definitely didn't appreciate Mordin as much as I could. I found him really weak in combat, and he obviously isn't a romanceable option. He was there to be the scientist, to give you access to the lab and get the research, but he didn't ever appeal to me to start with. But I was really wrong. He is so much more than that. I cannot recommend talking to him throughout the game enough. The things he has to say really engross you in the Mass Effect world. I maintain he's not the best in combat. He does die very easily. However, he does have the very useful Incinerate ability, which, if you aren't playing a class that allows it to have yourself, which I believe is only the Sniper class, Infiltrator, There is a lot of uses for Incinerate. It's very good against armor. Morden is an incredibly complex and well-written character. One of the best, I would say, in terms of writing. He has many different layers and things to him. Of course, his story nearly always ends in tragedy. There is one obviously specific scenario in which the Morden can stay alive, but you almost the strange thing about that thing is in order to keep Morden alive, you have to have made all the wrong choices along the way. Most players would see him sacrifice himself to cure the Krogan genophage, having kept Rex alive. A smaller amount would have killed him to not kill the genophage yourself. If you didn't think that even with Rex that was a decision that was best for the galaxy, that the Solarians had convinced you that curing a genophage would not be the right thing. Maybe there's a few people out there that killed Morden. I've certainly done that playthrough before. It is as heart-wrenching as you would think it would be. And he doesn't back down from Shepard. He shows a backbone as a spine. He says to Shepard, look, I have this data now. I believe this to be true. No one's going to stand in my way. I'm going to go and end the genophage. You have to stop me. Which, of course, you can. The way that Morden can survive, of course, is if you've pretty much messed up every other choice along the way. So you would have to have killed Rex, which puts his brother Reeve in charge, who's much more blood hungry. And you would have had to destroy Malon's data, which, of course, then causes Eve to die and not be around as a stabilizing influence for Reeve. So with Reeve alone, that is the only way then you can convince Morden, look, the curing the genophage is not the right time. Reeve is not the man we want in charge for a Krogan that can breed and take over the galaxy again. So in that scenario, you can have him fake his death. He still doesn't appear in the game again, not even on the Citadel DLC, which is heartbreaking, just as an email. But I say many people wouldn't ever do that because you have to go through such a bad route to get to that end result. But believe it or not, that was my first playthrough. Because I didn't have Rex because I started Mass Effect 2 and I killed him off in the comic book because, I didn't know him. And I destroyed the data because it was a renegade decision at the time, I believe. So I got rid of it. And for me, the genophage, there was no helping the Krogan under Reeve. Eve died, and Reeve was this bloodthirsty Krogan. So for me, it made sense to try and convince Morden not to do it, and of course he didn't. So the fact that there are so many different outcomes again with Morden, it really does show that, there are parts of this game where Bioware really show they know what they were doing. There's some fantastic writing. And I mean, how else do you end a section on Morden Solace by finishing off with his most immortal of words? It had to be me. Somebody else might have gotten it wrong. Number 6. Jack. Mass Effect 2 and 3. Just missing out on my top 5 characters, and not by much, and you'll see why soon, is Jack. The different relationships that Shepard can have with Jack really do fascinate me. The unique way, at least until Andromeda, that sex with Jack doesn't necessarily translate into a locked relationship with her is something, again, we don't see that in these games. Not from a main character anyway. From a side character, Shepard can have plenty of flings, but as far as the crewmates go, that usually is a locked-in thing by the time you get to that point. During a conversation with male Shep, Jack will question him as to why he's so interested in her. Shepard can respond in several ways, but it will lead to her asking if Shepard just wants to have sex with her. Be something different, something fresh. And Shepard can respond positively to this, at which point the two will have a full-on sex scene there and then, down in the engine bay of the Normandy. After this, though, Jack will shut Shepard out romantically. And even though you do remain friends, she in fact responds very positively to you in Mass Effect 3. You cannot have a proper relationship then with Jack, because she keeps that idea in her head that people are generally only interested in her for one thing, even though she does also then see Shep as a friend, but she could never see him as anything more. However, should Shepard want something more serious with Jack, she can feel that for him. He has to turn down that initial sex offer and instead redirect the line of questioning into getting to know Jack more. Eventually, reacting with a lot of kindness to Jack. I feel like you have to be Paragon for Jack if you want to go down this route. Jack's walls will start to crack and eventually come down, and she realizes that Shepard really does see her as an interesting person, as a person he wants to know, as somebody that she could love. And, and they do have a traditional scene at the end of the game where they can lock in a relationship and have a much more tame and romantic sex scene, or romance scene, as you like to say, where they confess loving feelings for each other. And that does then seal them in a true relationship, carrying over into Mass Effect 3. Jack is a really diverse and complicated character. Tortured as a child, betrayed, mocked, feared, abused. Her entire life has been nothing but bad experience after bad experience. Through really, to start with at least, no fault of her own. Tortured by Cerberus, betrayed by friends. Her time with Shepard is potentially the first really truly positive thing in her life, and it does really truly help her turn her life around, whether she's in a relationship with a Shepard or not. In Mass Effect 3, she still has her Jackisms, but she is a much more caring person in her own way. She truly cares about the group that she's now looking after, the group of kids, teaching them biotics and learning them. She really wants them in the war, but on the back line. She doesn't think they're ready for front line. She wants to protect them, and she's training them to be the best that they can be, using her experience of what not to do, to really help lives of young kids that she probably sees a bit of herself in, or a route that she wishes she could have gone through. She quips with Shepard and even comments on their fling if it had happened, which is also quite an entertaining little scene. Jack's one of those characters that I didn't think I would like. She doesn't strike me immediately as somebody that I would find interesting. But the more you get to know about her, and the more you can see her change, the higher that she actually found herself reaching on my list. And the more I thought about Jack, is like the more I appreciate the character. Now, combat, I don't think she's all that great. There are better users of the shotgun. There are better biotics. But she's always fun to have around. Her dialogue is great. Personally, I've never done the true Jack romance. I just don't think it's the way I ever see her character. I prefer Shepard to just be that positive influence on her life. Be a friend, her first true friend, that doesn't need anything from her and just wants to be a friend to her and help her through things and make her that better person. I also don't think it's good for Jack that the first person to show her true kindness also uses that in order to make her fall in love with him in a way. Like, the relationship is a little bit odd in that respect, because Jack has never been shown that kindness, and of course she could fall for the person that did that. And there's some moral implications there over whether Shepard should sort of take advantage a little bit of that. Of course, it's never portrayed like that, but it's just something that I pick up on a little bit. I truly believe they're better as good friends, and maybe even had that little bit of fun one time. But actually, I'm not done talking about Jack, because she does play a heavy part in my number 5 slot, so let's go into that right now. Number 5. Miranda Lawson. Yes, number 5 is Miranda. And as you can probably see, she is the last Mass Effect 2 character introduced on my list. Making her my favourite character that was first introduced in Mass Effect 2. And that, I think, I says quite a lot, because Mass Effect 2 has a lot of good characters. And it does primarily come down to the fact that my first playthrough of Mass Effect 2, I fell in love with Miranda. And this was at a point where I didn't appreciate Tali as much as I do now. But yeah, I think it also had a lot to do with the actress that voices Miranda. Was an actress I had just watched in Chuck, and she's a very attractive actress as well. But the accent and obviously the way Miranda was presented, I have to say I had a weakness for, and I did very much like her my first playthrough. So yeah, Miranda was my first Mass Effect romance, having started with Mass Effect 2. However, it was a romance that playthrough with her is not actually one I took through into Mass Effect 3. Because by then there was somebody else that had stolen my heart, as I had mentioned. Miranda's a Cerberus operative through and through, at least at the start and most of the way through Mass Effect 2. She fully supports Cerberus, looks up to the elusive man as a father figure, for sure. She's his right-hand person, trusts her more than anyone almost, or at least he presents that he trusts her more than anyone. I don't truly think that elusive man trusts anybody. But he enables her. He gives her anything she wants. She can set these challenges for herself, and he'll give her the funds to do it. And he does at least show a believable in Miranda, and gives her that faith to be who she wants to be. But she never truly does feel that as you get to know her through the game. She never feels good enough for anyone. It's just that the elusive man does, at least, I say he tries to make her feel that way. I don't think he really does, but he presents that he's trying to make her feel that way. He did save her life, gave her a lot of responsibility, and he did let her become this woman that we see. This, I would say, this confident woman, and she is, but she's also very timid and just and unconfident. Like, she has this inner depth to her that really truly shows the small, scared girl inside her, and you really have to get to know her to see that. And of course, as much as she does love Cerberus and cares for the Illusion Man, she does eventually turn her back on it all, because Shepard helps her realise she can be her own person, and she is actually as impressive as the Illusion Man wants her to believe, but she can't. She deserves everything that she has, what she's done. Shepard would not be alive if it wasn't for her. She is her own woman. Shepard provides her with a role model. She can actually see somebody that does get things done, somebody that is a leader and people will willingly follow, and she says as much in the game. She starts off very hostile towards Shepard, and even if he's playing Paragon, he's very hostile towards Miranda as well. But she does come around to see how Shepard is a much more reliable person, role model, idol to look up to than the Elusive Man is. Now, heading back to, obviously, when we're talking about Jack, Miranda's loyalty mission, by this point she's beginning to doubt Cerberus a little bit, but she has a sister who Cerberus are helping her to escape from her father. At least she thinks they are. And we do end up rescuing her sister from her father's agents. And this almost allows Miranda to believe in Cerberus again. That they are helping her, that they've hidden Oriana, that they've saved her from being caught by her father. And it's an interesting mission for Miranda. It's not the most interesting of loyalty missions as Shepard. There's nothing really that goes on in it. But it is a very emotional point for Miranda, and obviously you can then encourage her to have that relationship with her sister. And this mission does show the best of Cerberus, like, in a way. Now, I know the Elusive Man's only doing this to keep Miranda on side, of course, but it does show the best of Cerberus helping out their operatives. In stark comparison to Jack's loyalty mission, which shows the absolute worst of Cerberus. showing obviously how they tortured kids, especially Jack, or maybe not especially Jack. Jack was their prize. They tortured other kids even worse to make sure these experiments wouldn't hurt Jack as much, wouldn't affect Jack in negative ways. And it truly shows the sickness of Cerberus. If you take them both together on Jack's loyalty mission, that is canon to me, because it allows Miranda to see the horrors of Cerberus firsthand, and see that aggressiveness between Jack and Miranda as they argue different sides of the coin. Now, of course, when you finish both their missions, they get into a huge fight on the Normandy, each threatening to kill the other, biotics spread everywhere, both looking to rip the ship apart to destroy each other, of course. Miranda remaining quite calm, trying to be superior, the better person. Jack, of course, throwing things, being angry and emotions, but both women entirely certain that they would rip the other one apart. If I'm quite honest, my money would be on Jack, especially Cutscene Jack. Cutscene Jack is a monster. But of course, a Shepard with a high enough Paragon or Renegade score can solve the situation by either shouting them both down or calming them both down. Because, Mass Effect 2 has the magic formula for, I have the magic key to anything, I just select the red or blue text. So it allows you to set them both down and keep both loyal. However, if your Shep is not prepared enough by the time this happens, if you've done these two missions early on and you don't yet have the Renegade or Paragon score that you need to settle this argument down, you have to pick a side. Now, I believe that you can pick a side and then get a big enough score to potentially convince the other person later on, if you don't talk to them too much, to come around. However, from what I understand, that can be quite fiddly to do. So the odds are that if you have missed this point in the game, then you lose one of their loyalties, and then that person has a good chance of dying in the suicide mission, which would suck, especially if the one you didn't want to died. I mean, obviously, probably at that point, if you did prefer one of the other massively, you'd probably side with that person anyway, and that person would stay loyal. But it can definitely happen, much like the Legion and Tali confrontation. It's a big tipping point in the Mass Effect series, and whilst the consequences aren't quite as big or important going into Mass Effect 3, as neither are actually squadmates anyway, it can change your game dramatically, especially, as I say, both do make an appearance with missions in Mass Effect 3 as well. These two characters truly do show the contrast of both the perceived good and undeniable evil of Cerberus. And for me, it makes sense for those two to be close on this list. It was a case of how high do they go together, and you think, well, maybe this character would go here and here, but I wanted to keep them together, and I settled on the fact that we go with Jack 6, Miranda just making the top 5, and plus that ass, right? Number 4. Liara T'Soni. I can hear the anger in the comments now. Not only is Liara not in the top 3, not only is she behind a character from Andromeda, she's not even the highest rated Asari, but please, trust me, I have a lot of amazing stuff to say about Liara. Buckle in, and I'll try to explain to you why she's my number 4, and why it's not a bad thing. Why number 4 is still mightily impressive. Outside of Shepard, Liara is the most important crewmate in the entire series. This is emphasized by the fact that you absolutely have to recruit her in Mass Effect 1, whereas Garrus and Rex you do not. She is not a crewmate in Mass Effect 2, so cannot die in the suicide mission, because she is vital to Mass Effect 3. And she can literally only die if Shepard has a low EMS galactic readiness, and in one of the very final scenes of the game. That is the only point in which Liara can die, because she is that important. Liara starts out the game as a timid young Asari who has almost no experience of the real world, no social skills. Her nose is stuck in books and historical documents and relics, Prothean dig sites, and she is completely devoted to an almost scarily obsessed way with the Protheans. Um, Recruiting Liara early in Mass Effect 1 allows her to take the journey along with Shep, learning more as they go, growing together, her discovering that what she's been researching her entire life is now coming to fruition, and how much she didn't know. By the end of Mass Effect 1, Shep and Lara have gone through so much together, their minds have been melded several times, and depending on the player, have been completely intimate with Liara. Um, when and of course, also in Mass Effect 1, you go through that whole journey of Liara having to help kill her mother. I mean, obviously, you can do that before you get Liara, and then you wake her up later, and it's like, whoa, all this stuff happened without her realizing. But I think, like, come on, for the story, you have to wake Liara up first, right? When the Normandy explodes, Shepard obviously gets expelled from the Normandy, and Liara loses that best friend she's ever had, the best role model she's ever had, the only person she's opened up to and trusted implicitly, potentially her romantic partner at that point. Losing Shepard, whether friend or lover, just sends Liara crazy. She cannot get over his death. She cannot accept his death. She goes to the extreme where she makes a deal with Cerberus to steal your body and get the body from the Shadow Broker, keep it out of his hands, uses her friend to get that body back from the Shadow Broker, to give it to Cerberus, of all people, because Cerberus are the only crew and the only people that are showing an interest in bringing back Shepard. And to her, even that tiniest little bit of hope allows her to justify giving Shepard's body to Cerberus. Cerberus! I cannot emphasize that enough. Throughout Mass Effect 1, you have seen nothing good from Cerberus whatsoever. And she gives them your body. Cerberus! She is that desperate for the smallest chance of bringing you back to life, whether friend or lover. She trusts one of the biggest enemies from the first game because she sees no other option. Of course, she saves your life. During this time where they have the body, the 2-year gap, Liara becomes an information broker on Ilium, attempting almost to emulate and rival the Shadow Broker himself. Her biggest part in Mass Effect 2 is the Lair of the Shadow Broker DLC, which until the Citadel DLC came out was universally known as the best Mass Effect piece of DLC. Perhaps one of the best DLCs of any game ever. The amount of detail they put into that. And then, of course, going into Mass Effect 3, Liara is this hardened warrior and an ambassador to her people, and almost completely self-sufficient and Shepard's most devoted ally. In my opinion, if there was a canon playthrough of Mass Effect 3, which with Mass Effect 4 being announced, maybe there will be, but if there was at this point, Shepard would be in a romance with Liara. Liara is an adorable character in Mass Effect 1. She grows into this fierce Asari woman. Her story arc is that of growth and loss and pain and triumph, and is full of knowledge and acceptance and mastery of all things. Of all the characters, it's arguable that she is the most written for. The most active and the most special. You could definitely see there was a focus on her in Mass Effect 1 to draw new players into this mysterious alien Asari race. Going into combat also, her biotics are generally unmatched from anyone. Her singularity is easily one of the most strongest default powers. The more you buff it, the better it even gets. Obviously, if you are into watching speedruns of Mass Effect, you will see how they use Liara's singularity a couple times to just break the game. It's that powerful. Liara in Mass Effect 1 lies on the extreme Paragon side of the scale. But you would have to wonder that if Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 did use a similar system to Mass Effect 1, where exactly she would fit on there. Because know what, she is a very good person, but she certainly changes a lot between the games. And she would definitely sort of edge towards that either maybe a chaotic neutral side, because some of the things that she does in the later games, not quite so paragon and innocent as a Liara from Mass Effect 1. So Shepard's impact on her is certainly very prominent, let's say. Liara will forever be an iconic character in the Mass Effect franchise, if not the most iconic after Shepard theirself. And of course, she even ends Mass Effect 3 with a fantastic eulogy for Shep, dead or alive, and whether she makes it herself or gets some input from Shepard. She's a prominent figure and well deserving of being high on everybody's list. So why is she only number 4 on my list? Well, number 3. Pelessaria Basail, Mass Effect Andromeda, also known as PB. Please don't hate me. PB should not be ahead of Liara. For all intents and purposes, she has far less of a character, far less of a journey, makes far less of an impact over the entire series, isn't as well developed, is in a comparatively much worse game, and you'll see I don't have that much more to say about PB, anywhere near as much as I said about Liara. And as I've said, my Andromeda memory is nowhere near my memory for the other 3 games, so remembering every little thing she does is not possible for me right now. So why is she number 3? Because I love her. Her whole character, her look, her everything, I just completely fell for her straight away, instantly. I love her dialogue, I love her banter with everybody, her romance is fantastic, starting off as his friends with benefits, no strings things, and then developing, she's so sweet, and she's cute, and shy, and crazy, and exciting, and she adds so much fun into Andromeda. I can't imagine playing that game without romancing PB, because she's just, for me, so incredible. I literally, if I was going to fall in love with a video game character, it would probably be PB. Her dialogue with everybody is just the most entertaining. She has such contrasting relationships with everybody. It's so much fun. Maybe I'll regret putting her this high. Maybe it's silly to use just literally my personal feelings to put her this high. But I mean, it's my list. Of course, I'm going to put my personal feelings into this. Maybe she doesn't. I don't know how to explain it. If I were going to date a character in the Mass Effect world, it would be her, as I said. And I really don't have much more. And I'm sorry if that does upset anybody, but it is my list, and there was always going to be things that I find better than other people do. Sorry about that, but what can I say? Now, any Mass Effect fan probably know and knew who the top 2 were going to be from the start, because really, is there ever any doubt? However, picking between them, that was tough, and that is always the question. But in the end, as my number 2, I went for number 2, Talizora Vas Normandy from Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. Agony. Pure agony deciding between Tali and number 1. Oh, I wonder who that could be. It was absolute agony. How can anybody possibly play the original 3 games and not fall head over heels for Tali? Where to even start with her? Tali is introduced to Shepard in Mass Effect 1 as a young Quarian, not really experienced with the world, a bit naive, but finds herself in possession of some evidence that we vitally need, and that the Shadow Broker will kill her to get. On a pilgrimage from her flotilla, she's say, completely new to the outside world, and this knowledge and this information that she has is bigger than anything she had ever had any exposure to before, and anything that she could have ever imagined. This leads her into obviously a massive adventure with Shepard over the next 3 games, of which she could never have pictured when embarking on her pilgrimage in the first place. Obviously, on recovery of this information, she's whisked away by Shepard onto the greatest ship in the galaxy to fight in a universe-defining fight. It's no wonder that Tali gets so overwhelmed with everything, really. In the first game, Tali is not that active of a character. She has that sort of semi-personal quest that helps her on her pilgrimage, but you don't really know it was her personal quest until after you've done it. She obviously isn't romanceable yet, but she does still leave an impact on you playing the game. And then, for a second, skipping out Mass Effect 2, going into Mass Effect 3 is where Tali really shines. There are several quests built around her, the whole Geth-Quarian conflict. We see her doing everything she can to support her flotilla as an admiral. Even if she is exiled, she is still with them in a supportive role. And say, even in the midst of her being used for political purposes by them, potentially ending in that exile. Playing a Tali and Shepard relationship truly does put Shepard in a protector role. Tali is cheeky and witty, but very fragile and very attached to Shepard. Shepard is one of the only people that Tali has been able to rely on in her life without question. Someone that has helped her just because that's what friends do. Tali is universally liked throughout the Normandy crew. Even Ashley and her disdain for aliens even sees Tali as a little sister. Even Ashley can't hate Tali. Now, of course, in Mass Effect 2, Tali and Legion have their standoff moment, much like Jack and Miranda. Again, a Shepard with enough Renegade or Paragon points can settle this situation like magic. I've just finished my Mass Effect 2 playthrough, and I actually had both enough Renegade and Paragon points to end that conflict however I liked. I still showed Renegade because I was going the Renegade route, of course. And then following that through into Mass Effect 3, the two characters are basically inseparable. They're thrown together in multiple missions, multiple scenarios, and depending on how you play the game, could end up in the destruction of either the Geth or the Quarians. But ideally, creating peace between them. I wouldn't really ever recommend sacrificing the Quarians unless the Shepard that you're playing is a truly sadistic one, or you're in a stream or something and you want to make your viewers just lose their minds because of what happens to Tali if you do that. Tali is a really special character to me. I can't express how much I love Tali enough. She is 9 times out of 10 the romance I'll play through playing the game nowadays. If I'm playing as male Shep, obviously. You only see Tali's face if you romanced her. Obviously, they had that awful stock photo of her in the old games, but now with the remaster, they have made a better Tali face, which does make her even more adorable. She is a fully deserved character to have a high placement on everybody's list. I would be shocked if anybody did a list of Mass Effect characters and Tali was not in the top 3. I would be truly shocked. And even, to be fair, if I was in the middle of a playthrough that I was romancing her, but I've just played FemShep, but maybe that would have pushed her at the time of writing this list to make her my number 1, because I truly do believe that her and the number 1 on any given day could swap. They're both just such fantastic characters. But for today, whilst Tali is best girl, there can be only one. And number 1, best bro, Garrus Vakarian. Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. Garrus is just fucking awesome, man. He's the best friend any Shepard could ever want. A character whose loyalty goes beyond any doubts. A character you have no question about knowing he would take a bullet for Shepard in a heartbeat. He would follow Shepard to the ends of the earth, whether a best bro version of him with a male Shep or a female Shep, or even as a best bae as a female Shep, which is the playthrough I am currently doing. Garrus has so many of the best lines in the series. Best moments, best scenes, best reactions. His sarcasm is almost unmatched. His commitment to Shepard cannot be questioned in any way whatsoever, whether Shepard reinforces his aggressive nature or pulls him back and allows Garrus to see the world with a bit more clarity, a bit more kindness. Garrus starts off in Mass Effect 1 as a disgruntled CSEC employee, frustrated that no one takes his investigation into Saren very seriously. Of course, that is until he meets Shepard. The two find a mutual affiliation for justice and law and not letting politics getting in the way of getting the job done. You, in Mass Effect 1, can heavily influence Garrus' stance on things. He looks up to Shepard as a leader and a role model more than anybody almost. And will follow Shepard's lead on that. If Shepard wants to go renegade, Garrus will be slightly more renegade. If Shepard is Paragon, he can bring that Paragonness to Garrus and soften him up to the fact that he's still this gruntled, hard character, but he will see the world in a slightly different way. And Garrus, Shepard to Garrus is that Spectre that he could have been had his father allowed him to become a Spectre. But thank God he didn't, because he could have been in Nihilus' position, and Mass Effect without Garrus. Ugh. Could you imagine? Shepard can reinforce to Garrus the beliefs in what Spectres represent, getting the job done no matter what, or having a kindness for saving as many people as possible along the way. He can switch Garrus, like I said, he can switch Garrus onto that Paragon-y path. Or keep him on that more renegade nature that he has. I think in Mass Effect 1 he's on the edge of... He's in the middle zone, I believe. Sort of edging towards renegade, I believe. I could be wrong on that one, actually. In the gap between Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, Garrus does what he thinks is the right thing to do. He doesn't return to CSEC because he's now too used to living outside of that and being able to actually affect the world. So he builds a team, just like Shepard done. He's lost Shepard, so he's taken on that mantle for himself. He's going to build a team and do some good work. He goes to Omega, starts fighting for the little guy, standing up to the big bullies, fighting off 3 mercenary groups. Unfortunately for Garrus, his story does end in betrayal, which ends up getting his entire squad killed, which is brutal for Garrus, because it's something that truly just reinforces that I can't trust anybody mantra that he has. And if Shepard hadn't come back to life, I do fear what may have happened to Garrus. I mean, to start with, he probably would have died on Omega, right? But I fear what would happen even if he got out of that, what sort of person he would have become. This hardened, can't trust anybody, everybody dies mentality that would have been put in him. And of course he swears this just cold-blooded revenge on Sidonus. Now, during that mission where you recruit Garrus, he suffers a deep scar across his face, but he never really lets him bother him. He makes jokes on it. He talks about how Krogan women find scars attractive, and it really shows his character that he doesn't care about looks. He's about the person. He's about himself. He's about doing what's right and feeling good about what you do. Joining back with Shepard wasn't even a question for Garrus. He had no other loyalties, nothing to get done, nothing he needed Shepard to do for him. It was, let's get safe. Will you join me? Yes, of course. And that is Garrus now for all 3. There is never a question over Garrus joining Shepard. He would go with him to the ends of the earth, and does. After Garrus survives Mass Effect 2, because if you get him killed, you're a monster, he becomes a reluctant leader and an advisor for the Taurian people, put into this position as he's a so-called Reaper expert. And again, despite this, Shepard appears on Paladin, and there's never one moment where you think Garrus isn't coming with you. Not for a second. Because there's no way you don't finish that journey together. The Garrus romance as a femshep, I think, is also one of the most complete romances in the game. True comrades in arms, best friends, building on a strong mutual trust and respect. Despite the two species being reluctant allies and many Turians possessing anti-human agendas throughout Mass Effect 1 and 2, it's never even a thought between these two. These two just click, they get on, they just enjoy each other's company. Shepard sees the heart in Garrus, and his devotion to her allows her wills to come down with him, probably more than anybody else. He, for me, is the other canon romance I would consider other than Liara for a femshep. Even though it's not the same sort of a romance, I do think that those being together is really great. However, I'm not against you not romancing him as long as you talk to him a lot, because then you can see him and Tali get together. And I think if you're not going to be with Garrus or Tali, having them two be together is just the perfect way to end things. So the true canon in my head is Shepard, Liara, and Garrus and Tali, even though I very, very rarely romance Liara myself as a Shepard. I much prefer to go with Tali, or even going into Mass Effect 3 Trader. In combat terms, Garrus possesses some good powers. Obviously, he's got the strong overload. He has a mighty big sniper rifle, and you can really boost his damage up to do a lot of damage. And it can be an asset. He's a little bit frail sometimes, but he is a solid companion to bring with you. You absolutely cannot play Mass Effect and not love the perfect Turian hero, Garrus Vicarian. He is my number one character in Mass Effect, and I have no regrets. And that is my list. Love it or hate it. If you want to destroy me over it, we can argue all this down below in the comments. I think we can all agree that these games, particularly the original trilogy, are some of the best games ever made. But say, if you don't agree with my opinions on the list, please just let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. Consider hitting that subscribe button. You can also follow me at Scalamunger on Twitter. I really enjoyed making this video. It's taken me quite a while, but I have a sense of how to do this now, and I do intend to make a lot more lists going forward along this vein about some of my favourite things. So I've been Scal. Catch you next time. Peace.